He explained why he believes that Westerners find Sharia law troubling.
We look at the things from different mirrors. In the West, I think the emphasis is on human freedom. An individual is entitled to freedom to do what he likes, even if what he likes falls short of the moral scale. The overall emphasis in Islamic law is on communal harmony, the freedom of a community to live without one rough element, destroying life for them, just because he wants to live happily. We have, on our own volition, accepted that the provisions of Islam are cogent enough to govern human life on earth. What is more, there is security. Once Sharia is there, people go to bed without even locking the front door. You don't fear any thief coming in. The only thing you fear now is just the small goats or chicken coming in to disturb your sleep. I believe that the West wanted to always show that this notion of barbarism with Islamic law is actually true. With the event of September 11th, the West is frantic, trying to establish two worlds: the free, civilized, forward-looking Western world, and the backward and civilized Islamic world. I believe the reaction in the West increases the resolve of Muslims in this part of the country. People have to be allowed to believe in what they want to believe.
The rejection of Western penal codes and the imposition of strict Sharia punishments may be unsettling to some. A very different concern is the popularity here of a man known widely as an international terrorist.
You asked why you see Bin Laden's pictures all over the place. Why is this so? I say he's extremely popular with the people. And these are the ordinary people, the lorry drivers, taxi drivers, bus drivers. Follow any series of buses in Kano. You will see his pictures because they regard him as their hero. I have not talked to any one of them, but I can understand their feelings. They feel here is one man who is given the US a run for their money. The one country that is killing Muslims all over the world. The one country that is regarded by these people in their understanding as the worst enemy of Muslims and Islam. The one country that is giving Israel $3 billion every year, arms, aeroplanes to go and kill Muslims, defenseless Muslims in refugee camps. Here is one man who is giving them around for their money. So they love him.
Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden.
In 1998, bin Laden struck here at the U.S. Embassy in Kenya, East Africa. Since the 1980s, press reports of attacks on Western targets across the world have left some people convinced that all Muslims are anti-Western.
I don't think the average Muslim is against the average Westerner. I think a lot of Muslims are against Western politics, Western governments, because of what they perceive that Western governments do and the influence they have in their countries. True and simple.
Among the first places where Islam was used to legitimize a violent response to Western influence was here in Egypt. In the 1960s, many young educated Muslims were increasingly dissatisfied with the failure of socialism under Gamal Abdel Nasser and capitalism under Anwar Sadat to produce social and economic gains. The Islamic scholars of Al-Azhar University, too, had lost credibility after submitting to state control. New calls for justice and reform came from a growing number of independent mosques. Some sheikhs railed against the government and its Western allies. They called for an Islamic state that returned to the ethical principles of the Sharia. Among them was the so-called blind sheikh, Omar Abdul Rahman. He preached jihad.
Jihad actually has different interpretation. Jihad means the ability to control yourself. And this is, according to the Prophet, the highest degree or highest level of jihad. But also it means you fight the outside enemy.
Sharia law condemns the killing of the young, the elderly, and the innocent, but it does permit Muslims to defend the Muslim community if it comes under attack.
Some of those people who Americans call terrorists consider that they are fighting against those who fight against them. I don't want to stress this too far, but we do have a problem of interpretation. A text can be interpreted differently by different people. And those interpretations become legitimate to those who interpret the text in that manner. So we have several interpretations. Who's to say who's right?
Under the Egyptian militants' interpretation of jihad, anyone who prevented them from implementing their vision of Islam became a legitimate target.
Those who interpret jihad as, a tool to change the political system believe that, there is no other way to change the political system but through violence.
President Sadat clamped down.
The demonstrations against President Sadat have been building up for some time. This weekend, the president's formidable security force moved in to detain religious leaders. Opposition newspapers were closed down and journalists and politicians detained in a sweeping operation that was the best indication of the seriousness of the opposition. The president, though, is unrepentant.
It is a purge.
A member of the Islamic opposition at the time was Muntasir el-Zayat.
Sadat became annoyed with the Islamist groups. He felt they'd gone beyond what was permitted. Sadat tried to get rid of the Islamic societies, but they were quicker in getting rid of him. Some of its members killed him on the reviewing stand on October 6, 1981.
Among the 300 people put on trial after Sadat's assassination was Sheikh Rahman and a medical doctor, Ayman al-Zawahiri, who would become bin Laden's second in command.
We are Muslims who believed in their religion. We tried our best to establish this Islamic State and Islamic society. La ilaha illallah! La ilaha illallah!
The repression of Muslim activists that followed Sadat's killing precipitated 2 decades of violence in Egypt. The attacks culminated in November 1997, when militants massacred 58 tourists at the ancient site of Luxor.
They say that tourists are infidels and, they don't believe in Islam and whatever, so they are legitimate targets. But I think they were more motivated by the fact that, or the idea that if they hit the regime, the economic sources of the regime, then they achieved part of their goal.
The following year, the militants took jihad even further. In 1998, Osama bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri called on all Muslims to take up arms against the United States, which they accused of attacking the Ummah, the worldwide Muslim community.
If a part of that Ummah is attacked, then all of the Ummah is responsible for the defense of that area. Now, this means that if the Palestinians are attacked, if the Iranians are attacked, if the Iraqis are attacked, indeed if Muslims in this country are attacked, then Muslims elsewhere should come to the aid of those Muslims. So, as long as Muslims continue to be attacked, and they have been attacked throughout, for centuries, etc., then the fight continues.
By 2001, Osama bin Laden was planning an attack on America. It would create greater suspicions of Muslims than perhaps any event in history. In America, the night of September 11th brought crowds onto the streets. Across the country, Muslims were verbally and physically abused. Some mosques were vandalized. In Bridgeview, Illinois, these protesters were moving towards the local mosque when police moved in and blocked their path. Today, the police still patrol outside the Bridgeview Mosque and the Muslim schools next door. For American Muslims, numbering 5 to 7 million, the issues are starkly different than they are in majority Muslim countries. Here, it's about getting along as another American minority.
Let's move on, guys. Let's go.
Safa Zarzour came to the United States from Syria 16 years ago as a student. He became a teacher, and today he is principal of the Muslim Universal School next door to the Bridgeview Mosque. After the terrorist attacks, he received a hate letter.
And it's basically about 5-6 sentences full of profanities and insults and threatening remarks. I don't know who sent it, but obviously it's someone who knows that I'm the principal of this school, because they said, I'm going to blow up your bleep school.
The letter, laced with obscenities, was turned over to the FBI.
I mean, we are human, so you go through all kinds of emotions. I would say the first week I was afraid. Definitely I was afraid because, I mean, even, you know, I found myself taking my children, my wife, and going up to the second floor of the house for fear of somebody doing something through the window of the first floor. But at no time did I feel like that's going to alter anything. I mean, I felt like that's part of life. It's part of being different in America, I guess.
Even before September 11th, there were tensions. One incident happened in the town next door to Bridgeview, Palos Heights, Illinois.
The Mosque Foundation community grew so quickly that people were looking for other venues and other places to put a mosque and put a community center.
Dr. Amina McLeod is a Muslim and an expert in Islamic studies. She's built her career studying American Muslim communities. She watched the Palos Heights controversy start 2 years ago when the Muslims found a place for the new mosque, an empty church.
This church over here, Christ Community Church, is the place that had been up for sale, and Muslims moved to buy it and all hell broke loose. All of a sudden, the township wanted to keep it for itself. And as it turned out, when reporters and people all came out, the real issue was that they did not want Muslims to buy this property. One woman here in Palos Heights, her first response was, oh, so they're gonna put that tower on top of the church and start singing that song every time there's prayer. You know, that is her image.
At public hearings, some residents who objected to the mosque proposed a recreation center in its place.
The Mosque Foundation in Bridgeview has over 60,000 members. 60,000 members. Where are you going to put the traffic?
Other members of the community spoke up against what they called open racism.
I shudder to think of the conversations going on in Palos Heights homes about the issues of Muslims coming to our community. These are the conversations that impart our values to our children. I have heard concerns that the mosque community will meet on a different day. Good, less congestion on Sunday. There was a concern that they will school children there. Well, that's a nasty habit. I've heard a concern that the Muslim people are too conservative or their treatment of women restrictive. Are these sins worse than bigotry?
You had the ministers, not all of them, but several key figures saying, wait a minute, you know, these are our neighbors. They have the right to buy property here. You had other people on the city's council saying, absolutely not. These people are practicing a demonic religion. just ages-old nonsense about Islam coming up.
The Muslims accepted a monetary settlement and agreed not to buy the church. But still they went to court, charging discrimination.
Then it has gone now all the way to a federal judge saying, I want you to enter into some interreligious dialogue. And after you do this for X amount of time, let us see what changes. And I think that judge, whoever he or she is, just ought to be given a Nobel Prize. And even though they ordered it, the people in the community had to think enough of their community to take up this challenge, and they have.
MacLeod has been advising the Muslim community in Palos Heights and observing the interfaith dialogue, which continues while the case awaits trial.
How have you managed to make this difference in faith work? What is it?
There was a substantial number of Christian Americans here who felt the same way we do as Muslims, that we have the right to practice our faith. And
but it was this instance. How long have you lived here?
Actually, by now, 28 years.
Did you know these people before?
I didn't know those people before, no.
It's not that it was perfect, because we had struggles. There was controversy amongst the group, but we kept coming back to why are we here? What is the reason?
The Christians found they were the ones with the most to learn. The Muslims became teachers about Islam and how to understand differences and similarities between their faiths.
One issue that we had to confront, that we all worship this one and the same God. We had trouble as Muslims with the Trinity. If there is only one God, how come we have the Trinity? And we're not going to get into the details.
Don't get us started.
But we all believe, we all believe in God. We all believe in the life after death. We all believe in the angels. We all believe in the day of judgment. Now, there is more emphasis in Christianity upon Christ as the God incarnation, and in our Islam, the Quran is equivalent to Christ. The Quran to us is the actual word of God.
I wish I could be more generous in what I say, but I do stop short of saying that we all worship the same God, because I'm not sure what it means to say that we all worship the same God, but we don't all believe in the crucifixion. And I can say that I see God in my Muslim friends, but I can't quite say that we worship the same God. I can't.
I want to make a...
It'd be easier if I could.
The Quran teaches that God is the God of Adam, the God of Noah, the God of Abraham, the God of Moses, the God of Jesus, is the very same God of Muhammad. And the Quran emphasizes that all these prophets were Muslims, meaning they submitted their will to the will of the one and the only true God. My presentation in a church, sometimes I ask the audience of the church to recite the Lord's Prayer. Then, they are very proud to recite for me what Jesus instructed them to teach. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. After they are done, I say, this is Islam in a capsule. As simple as that, because the emphasis here, whom we call Allah, you call the Father. The only difference between you as a Christian and us as Muslims, that we put all our emphasis on that Father.
The interfaith dialogue continues. They meet once a month. In America, the Muslim population includes immigrants and those born here, a large number of whom are African Americans. The groups don't always get along. We witnessed this during a discussion at MacLeod's house.